Hello there, watching L24 Midnight News, coming to you live from Algiers, and to the headlines. President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, shared a cabinet meeting devoted to examining two draft laws relating to prevention of narcotics and psychotropic substances, among others. And in Europe, as Ukraine struggles to deal with the nearly 11 months of old Russian military operation, several senior Ukrainian officials lost their jobs in corruption scandals. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan warned Sweden that it should not expect Turkey back in to join the NATO, following the burning of a Quran outside the Turkish embassy in Stockholm. And in the USA, two mass shootings claimed 18 lives in California in just 3 days. And President Joe Biden called on the Congress to ban assault weapons following the death toll. Starting from Algeria, President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, shared on Tuesday cabinet meeting devoted to examining two draft laws relating to prevention and repression of illicit use and trafficking of narcotics and psychotropic substances, as well as the terms and conditions for granting economic land pertaining to private domain of the state. The press release from the Presidency of the Republic indicated that the cabinet meeting also dealt with a presentation of practical measures to curb the phenomenon of carbon monoxide suffocation.
The President of the Republic emphasized that granting real estate for economic purposes should be accompanied by genuine legal flexibility to encourage and attract investments, taking into account the higher interests of the state and digitizing the system to avoid bureaucracy. In order to preserve the lives of citizens, the Council of Ministers decided to instruct Sonelgaz to provide citizens' households with free of charge audio and visual alarms to detect carbon monoxide leaks. President Tebboune hailed the content of the draft law on the prevention of narcotics and psychotropic substances and the suppression of their use and dealing, as it includes measures to protect the society from the scourge.
Still with the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune received on Tuesday the U.S. Assistant Secretary of State in charge of international organizations, Michel Sisson, who is on a visit to Algeria. This letter confirmed that Algeria plays a major role in achieving regional stability, especially in the Sahel region. The Algerian Army Chief of Staff General Saïd Chengriha and the French Chief of Staff General Thierry signed on Tuesday a joint roadmap for military and security cooperation. A statement from the Algerian Ministry of Defense stating that the Algerian Army Chief of Staff held an extensive meeting with the French Army's minister in the presence of the French Army Chief of Staff and held discussions that touch on ways to enhance military and security cooperation, so that the meeting culminated in signing of a joint roadmap. In the same line of thought, the Chief of Staff of National People's Army, General Saïd Chengriha, was received by Mr. Sébastien Lecornu, Minister of the French Armies, at Ministry's headquarters. A statement from the Algerian Defense Ministry said that the Chief of Staff of People's National Army held a meeting with the French Minister of Armies in the presence of Lieutenant General Thierry Burkhard, Chief of Staff of the French Armies. The talks dealt on ways to enhance military and security cooperation. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad, Mr. Ramtan Amamra, received today in Algiers the Special Representative of the United Nations Secretary General for Libya and Head of United Nations Support Mission in Libya, Abdullah Batili, who is on a 2-day working visit to Algeria. The two parties discussed the developments of the situation in Libya and the efforts made to ensure the conditions necessary for organizing the next electoral deadlines. Batili, for his part, praised the positive contribution of Algeria in favor of political settlement process in Libya and its permanent solidarity with neighboring country.
I came here today to discuss with Mr. Lamamra and to have his perspective and support. Moreover, his efforts in the Libyan crisis date back to a long time ago. Algeria has always been engaged to put an end to this crisis, and today I came here looking for suggestions on how to concert efforts with the United Nations and other international actors.
Related to Algerian European matters, Giorgia Meloni's visit is the third visit of an Italian Prime Minister to Algeria in less than a year, a sign of strong relations and strategic partnership between Algeria and Italy. More in this report.
Italy's Giorgia Meloni headed to Algeria in her first state visit as Prime Minister, demonstrating the vital position of Algiers in Rome's list of strategic partners. Algeria and Italy aim to consolidate the relations and sign joint agreements in several sectors.
ويجدر في البداية أن أنوه بمستوى العلاقات الاستراتيجية وبالمجهودات المبذولة خاصة في السنتين الأخيرتين لتعزيز شراكة بين البلدين.
Meloni concluded her visit in Algeria with new strategic agreements to support energy security, initiating concrete steps to complete a new pipeline to transfer energy from Algeria to Italy, respecting the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions.
ومضينا الاتفاق اليوم على أساس بداية الدراسة ثم الإنجاز في أنبوب يكون أنبوب خاص. ما هوش أنبوب مثل الأنبوب الموجود حاليا، لأنه أنبوب سيضم أولا الغاز، ثانيا هيدروجين، الأمونياك وحتى الكهرباء.
We aim to increase energy supplies from Algeria to Italy and thus to the rest of Europe by studying the possibility of transporting gas and establishing a new gas pipeline that also allows the transportation of hydrogen and then achieving the desired energy transition.
This cooperation includes the sector of renewable energies, with the possibility of exporting electricity from Algeria to Italy via a maritime line.
جددت للسيدة ميلوني حرص الجزائر على تعزيز مكانتها كشريك استراتيجي لإيطاليا في المجال الطاقوي والتزامها بدورها كممول موثوق على الصعيدين الإقليمي والدولي، وكذا الأمر بالنسبة للاستثمار الصناعي بإيطاليا في الجزائر.
Algeria has priority because it is the most stable strategic partner and our partnerships extend over the long term. There are several projects that support the endeavor, such as the marine line that carries electricity and also transporting liquefied gas. This is the strategy we are looking for to confront the energy crisis that is hitting Europe.
The Algerian-Italian energy partnership is increasing, paving the way for win-win and mutual benefits for both parties. The agenda includes creating a regional platform for the re-export of Algerian energy through Italy to the rest of Europe.
To the Middle East now, Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Shtaya discussed on Tuesday with foreign ministers of EU countries cooperation in order to protect the two-state solution. The Prime Minister also called for building on the Arab Peace Initiative in order to end the conflict in the region, as well as recognizing the state of Palestine on the border of June 4, 1967. For his part, EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell reiterated his organization's commitment to protecting the two-state solution.
We met with the Palestinian Prime Minister, Mohammed Shtaya, who joined us during the lunch and shared with us the dire picture of the situation on the ground, with record Palestinian casualties in the West Bank, a sad record last year, and continuing level of tensions. We will continue our internal discussion after listening how challenges the situation on how we can enhance our bilateral relations further, working at the ministerial level. Everyone in the Foreign Affairs Council reaffirmed the commitment to protect the viability of the two-state solution, giving support on the ground and keeping it a political horizon.
In Western Sahara, members of the National Secretariat elected at 16th Conference of Polisario Front took the legal oath before the President of the Sahara Republic and the Secretary General of Polisario Front, Mr. Ibrahim Ghali. The oath was taken under the supervision of the President of the Supreme Court, Mr. Ibrahim Bella. The chairman of Sudan's Sovereign Council, Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, has renounced efforts to narrow the gaps between the forces and the Freedom and Change Democratic Bloc. In a meeting held on Monday evening, al-Burhan informed the representatives of the Democratic Bloc of his decision to withdraw mediation between the two coalitions.
وتطلعاته أشكر الجميع حضورهم ومشاركتهم وأتمنى أن نلتقي قريبا في حفل التوقيع على الدستور الانتقالي والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
The Minister of Al-Hajj and Umrah, Tawfiq Al-Rabi'a, said that the NUSC platform provides a set of services, foremost of which is the definition of all available visas.
منصة نسك تقدم مجموعة من الخدمات.
The NUSOC platform provides a set of services, foremost of which is the definition of all available visas. And according to their desire, a person can apply for Umrah visa, tourism visa, or any other type of visa. And based on that, they can obtain the appropriate visa, and therefore they can select the suitable accommodation and transportation mode to come to the kingdom. The platform also includes awareness programs related to Umrah and how to perform it, in addition to providing a mechanism for booking a date for Umrah and for entering the holy city of Medina.
To the European continent now, German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius said Tuesday there has been no change in Berlin's position on whether to allow German-made Leopard 2 tanks to be sent to Ukraine or permitting other countries with Germans-made tanks to send their units to Kiev. Hussein Burkan.
Germany keeps affirming that it will support Ukraine to win the war against Russia, despite the absence at this stage of a decision on the thorny issue of Leopard tanks deliveries to Ukraine. Polish Prime Minister said Tuesday that German government was being evasive and acting in a way that is difficult to understand over the decision on whether to send German-made Leopard tanks into Ukraine.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that this answer from the Germans will come quickly this time, because the Germans are delaying, being evasive, and acting in a way that is difficult to understand. We can see very clearly that they do not want to help Ukraine.
In turn, German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius says countries allied with Ukraine with Leopard heavy tanks can start training Ukrainian troops in their use, even though Germany has not agreed to their delivery to Kiev.
I have expressly encouraged partner nations that have Leopard tanks ready for deployment to train Ukrainian forces on these tanks. In total, Germany has already spent more than 3.3 billion euros. Only Great Britain is roughly in the same order of magnitude, apart from the United States, which shows the extent of Germany's commitment, in addition to all humanitarian commitments and other support measures.
Sorgfältig abwägen wollen, wie das der Bundeskanzler tut.
NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg reaffirmed the importance of supplying more heavy weapons to Kiev to help repel Russian forces, and added that he's confident that a solution will soon be found on the delivery tanks claimed by Ukraine.
We discussed the issue of battle tanks. Consultations among allies will continue, and I'm confident that we will have a solution soon.
Poland has officially requested permission from Germany to transfer its Leopard 2 battle tanks to Ukraine, where they can help fight Russians. Following a meeting of more than 50 allied countries on Friday, Germany had not yet committed to supplying the tanks, nor releasing their export licenses, but it denies unilaterally blocking the tanks' exports.
Still in Kiev, several senior Ukrainian officials resigned on Tuesday in the biggest leadership shakeup of the war with Russia so far, in what an aide to President Vladimir Zelensky called an answer to public calls for justice. Some, though not all, of the resignations were linked with corruption allegations. Ukraine has a history of graft and shaky governance and is under international pressure to show it can be a reliable steward of billions of dollars in Western aid. NATO and EU members Estonia, Latvia told the Russian ambassadors to leave the Baltic countries. Russia and neighboring Estonia, a member of NATO military alliance, said that Monday they are expelling each other ambassadors by February 7 after the Kremlin accused Estonia of Russophobia. In a statement, the Russian Foreign Ministry said Estonia had persistently destroyed relations with Moscow. The move comes after Estonia recently ordered a reduction in the size of the Russian embassy in Tallinn. Protests staged in Stockholm against Turkey and against Sweden's bid to join NATO, during which a copy of Quran was burned, have heightened tensions with Ankara, whose support is needed by Sweden to join the military alliance. Marab al-Iwar on what's follow.
Sweden Prime Minister on Tuesday said that his country wants to return to dialogue with Turkey to allow the Nordic countries vital accession to NATO after the halt in negotiations with Ankara.
I want to return to dialogue. Our collective message is that we want to call for calm, for reflection, for calm in the process so that we can resume functional discussions between Sweden, Finland and Turkey on our joint NATO membership.
This came after President Tayyip Erdogan's statement on Monday, saying that Sweden should not expect Turkey's support for its NATO membership, and Finland suggesting it might consider moving ahead with its application to join NATO without its neighbor Sweden.
It is very obvious those who allow such blasphemy in front of our embassy can no longer expect our support for their NATO membership.
The burning of Quran by the leader of the Danish far-right political party Hardline during anti-Turkish demonstrations in Sweden led to a diplomatic incident between the two countries. The Swedish government declined to stop the protests, citing the country's extensive freedom of speech protections. Sweden government approved for the Islamophobic act in the guise of free expression.
Swedish government doesn't need to mention about the rights and freedom to us. If you really do respect rights and freedom, at first, you need to respect Turkish Republic or Muslims' religious beliefs. If you don't show that respect, I'm sorry, you will not see any support from us regarding NATO issue.
The reasons behind Ankara's opposition for NATO bid are complex, but center mainly on the Sweden's support for Kurdish groups that Turkey considers to be terrorists and on weapons embargoes that both Sweden and Finland, along with other EU countries, put on Turkey for its targeting of Kurdish militias in Syria. The Swedish and Turkish defense ministers were scheduled to meet and discuss cooperation in NATO on Friday. However, the meeting has been cancelled. Condemnations erupted from around the world in response for Paludan's latest act and the Swedish government's approval, which amounted to harming religious harmony and hurting the sentiments of approximately 2 billion Muslims worldwide.
Relations between China and Australia might reach a breakthrough as prominent meeting between both countries' trade ministers raise hopes for progress toward the removal of trade restrictions imposed by Beijing in 2020. Nabil Khazini.
Celebrations of the Chinese New Year in Sydney's Chinatown are back following years of absence because of COVID-related lockdowns. For the first time in a long period as well, relations between China and Australia start to see light after a remarkable diplomatic freeze in the last years. This year marks the 50th anniversary of the establishment of relations between China and Australia, relations that deteriorated after Canberra's call for an international inquiry into the origins of COVID-19. Beijing issued verbal instructions to buyers to avoid Australian goods such as coal and cotton. Disputes between the two governments had spilled over to hurt other parts of the bilateral relationship like trade and investment.
The sound and stable development of China-Australia relations is in line with the common interest of the two countries and peoples, and is also conducive to maintaining peace, stability, development and prosperity in the Asia-Pacific region.
China has been Australia's largest trading partner since 2009. Trade volume has grown to over 207 billion in 2021, accounting for 34.2% of total imports and exports from the country in 2021. This position of China as a global economic power pushes neighboring countries such as Australia to get closer to China.
The Asian market, Asian countries, are trying to work closer and closer together, including China, open more trade zones, and have more trade with each other. So it's a huge market, much bigger than anywhere else.
The second half of 2022 saw bilateral meetings between leaders of both countries. The new positivity has already yielded progress on trade. However, the challenge now will be to convert the good vibes into concrete results.
Heads of state arrived at the summit of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States in Buenos Aires on Tuesday. Argentine President and host Alberto Fernandez welcomed presidents of countries such as Colombia, Brazil, Cuba and Uruguay. This year is marked by Brazil's return to Latin America community after former President Jair Bolsonaro withdrew his country from the organization in 2020.
What we should not allow is that fascist right-wing parties put the institutionality of our people at risk. We have seen it time and time again. We saw it first in the coup that Bolivia experienced. Thank God only lasted a year and Lucho Luis Arce was able to return, elected by his people, to the presidency of the nation. We also saw it a few weeks ago, when madness invaded the streets of Brasilia, just a week after my dear President Lula took office.
Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva paid his first international visit since he took office to Argentina on Monday, where he agreed with his Argentine counterpart on working to strengthen the South American region as commercial bloc. Lula said that Brazil and Argentina are in early talks to establish a shared unit of value for bilateral trade to reduce reliance on US dollar, though the move is not aimed at replacing existing currencies.
What we are trying to work on right now is to have our finance ministers, each with their economy teams and with a lot of debates and meetings, flood of foreign trade and transactions between the two countries with a common currency. Why don't we try to create common currency? In the same way it was attempted among the BRICS. I think eventually this will happen.
Today, President Lula da Silva and President Alberto Fernandez announced that they are going to take steps towards the creation of a common South American currency. I announced that Venezuela is ready and we support the initiative to create a Latin American and Caribbean currency.
Peru President Dina Boluarte called for a national truce as thousands of protesters continue to call for her resignation and fresh elections. Riot police have used tear gas to disperse anti-government protesters in Lima as demonstrations that have been gripping the country since early December show no sign of abating.
Yo me iré en el momento que ustedes, señores congresistas.
I will leave as soon as you, members of Congress, have voted, and we in the executive branch have called a general election. No one wants to stay in power.
Nadie se quiere quedar en el poder.
The United States is reeling from its third mass shooting in just 8 days after a man killed 7 former colleagues in South San Francisco. Mrimzia.
At least 7 people were killed in Half Moon Bay, California, in the second mass shooting in 3 days. A suspect in connection with the shooting was arrested, and officials believe is a worker at an agricultural facility, and the victims were workers as well.
We grieve tonight for the deceased members of our community. This is a horrific event, one that we would never imagine would occur in San Mateo County. Gun violence in this country is at completely unacceptable levels. It's really hit home tonight.
Half Moon Bay shooting came as California was already mourning the death of 11 at Monterey Park in California during Lunar New Year celebrations. Fortunately, a member of the public disarmed the gunman just minutes after he fatally shot 11 people.
I'd like to take a second to also thank Mr. Brandon Stye for his heroic action, which saved countless lives. He's the hero that disarmed the suspect at the Alhambra location, and in my opinion, saved many of lives.
39 mass shootings have taken place across the country in the first 3 weeks of 2023, an increase in figure, but the scenes of mass shootings horror aren't strange in the US. Gun ownership has grown significantly over several last years, and firearm injuries is a leading cause of deaths among people younger than 24. Researchers found that firearm mortality rates increased in recent years, and a study shows that a total of more than 1 million lives were lost since 1990. President Joe Biden urged Congress to pass a bill banning assault weapons following the attacks that killed at least 18 people in California. But in a divided Congress and with Republicans controlling the House of Representatives, a ban on assault weapons can be difficult.
And with the US mass shooting, we reach the closure of our news bulletin. Thank you so much for being with us. Good night.